brings all creators down to the level of the audience, but in a way that actually raises the profile of tasteful creators in the first place.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast, brought to you by IndiePRO.io.
What's up, Indie? Welcome back to Creative Juice. This is the podcast where we cover growing and monetizing a fan base and building a music career with marketing strategies that are working right now based on what we see every single day inside our music marketing agency and across our community of thousands of artists and bands. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. This is episode 403, and I'm your host, Jack McCarthy. And with me today to talk about the ever-evolving topic of AI and the music industry is Circa. Cirque, what's up, dude?
Not a whole lot, dude. Just having a blast out there on the internet, like you do. Terminally online kids.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep. For better or worse, here we are, plugged in, ready to go.
We're out here. Yeah. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. Something I've been talking about for probably over 2 decades now. And it's a convergence of 2 topics of interest for me. So, I got to talk about it. And yeah, I really do feel as if, perhaps this episode can represent, at least for the small community of artists and thinkers and people that we interact with, just like sort of this, like maybe a call for a sea change here to just sort of say, there was this nice time, this nice Garden of Eden in which we existed, where we didn't really have to think about things in the context of these technologies that are emerging. And I think that time's coming to an end. I think it might be over. I think we actually have to start talking about and thinking about, what all this means for artistry, music, the pursuit of liberal arts in general.
Yeah. This episode has been one that I would say we've been gradually approaching. Like, we've talked about AI plenty on the podcast with guests. We've talked about it in the midst of other topics and where AI plays a role in different areas of your marketing or what you might be doing, things you might be experimenting with. We've talked about it as far as predictions go into New Year's and things like that. But it's been a minute since we've really had an episode that was meant to be just an ongoing discussion of like evolving thought around this and where AI exists within the overall discussion about like the music industry.
Yeah, well, I think that like now's a good a time as any, sort of just to sort of set the table here, like where we are in history, right? We're sort of, it's 2025, it's Q4 2025, we're coming to an end. It has been a monumental year in terms of the advancement of, AI technologies as they integrate into our lives. Many, we're seeing full saturation, like tons of people use ChatGPT or, its equivalents, Gemini, Grok, whatever. It's very ubiquitous technology, and it's achieving a fidelity, a quality now. It's good to a degree that sort of flies in the face of all of those who maybe 2 or 3 years ago or even 1 year ago would have said, oh, but it'll never do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And we put out a video, actually, I sounded the alarm bells on this back when it was sort of doing silly things. So we were looking at music AI. They were testing it out. They were doing like shitty, like Frank Sinatra covers, I think, and or fake songs. And it was laughable. But like the point of the video was like, hey, like, this is not going to be laughable for very long. It's going to get way better really fast. And yeah. I think we're sort of at this point where it has done that. And now it's just about sort of making people slowly realizing that's what's happened.
It's a really great point, because if you haven't used AI or haven't been using AI much at all in your day-to-day work or life over the last, year and a half to 2 years, and maybe even beyond, then you might not realize the speed at which improvements have occurred. Here's a really good example. I've been using AI for copywriting since before ChatGPT was in existence. ChatGPT, as we know it, where there was a chat interface from OpenAI. I started out using a tool called, I think, Jasper.
Yeah.
It was one of the first like AI copywriting interfaces that I really liked. And it involved so much wrestling and really heavy prompting ongoing, and it still didn't, for a lot of people, unless you really worked it, it really didn't do what you wanted. And now I look forward here to where we are today at the time of this episode airing, December 2025, and what I do with copy and AI just with ChatGPT is just worlds different and worlds better.
Sure.
The improvement since then has been so fast. It's been so fast.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to again refer to the video we put out. The title is What They Don't Know About ChatGPT, GPT 3.5.
Wow.
So this was a while ago.
Yeah. We'll link to it in the show notes.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah. You know, we're now on GPT-5 and its various like reasoning variants. But just to say, like, I've been immersed in this technology. I've been developing with AI for like 2 years now, like developing and then developing programs that use LLM ops, right? And so I'm like boots on the ground with this technology. But also, if you know, like, if you go back in the podcast to when I think it was like 2019 or something, it's one of our more like, it's probably one of the most listened to podcast episodes of Creative Juice about Spotify algorithm. We went over the Spotify quote unquote algorithm, which essentially is a machine learning model that then feeds a pipeline that's very programmatic. So really there's AI, a big chunk of AI, and then there is a pipeline for recommendations. And we went over it in depth. It's one of the more well like listened to things we've done. It's also in our Spotify training in IndiePRO. And what I talked about was like, look, this is machine learning. It is in a lot of ways, it shares a lot of similarities with what powers neural networks that you now use in the form of like ChatGPT, which is, it's really helpful to understand that these things, they construct a space. Like think of it like a physical space. And in this case with LLMs, with ChatGPT, it's semantic space. So if I say, hey, if we were to plot in this space of words and concepts, like the idea of king and queen, where does it exist in this space? They exist relative to each other somewhere in this space. If I were to plot also man and woman, you would find that they exist in a similar way. They're actually the same distance in the same direction apart. There's a direction in this space that represents feminine and masculine. And you can travel along it to get words and concepts that are more or less feminine or masculine. And that's just one dimension in this hyperdimensional space of concepts. Well, that same thing can be constructed for music. And that's how Spotify works, actually. They construct a latent vector space of songs using features, and the dimensions are all just different features of songs. So loudness, major key, the lyrical content, things like this. They construct a high dimensional space, and that's literally how they calculate what they recommend to you in Discover Weekly. And it has been for over a decade, I want to say, at least 5 or 6 years. It's been like that. And so what you have to understand is that things like Suno, music AIs, what they're doing is they're constructing the same space of musical concepts that you might find powering something like Spotify, but they're allowing you to traverse it.
Yeah.
Using text as input or audio as input or both. Okay. So you can basically what you're doing is you're saying, think about this space. I want you to travel in this direction in this space. So I'm giving you this, which has its own space. Then the text input has a space in this high dimensional, like it has a location in this space. And you're just performing transformations, like you're traveling along this space. So if I were to make a rap song into a rock song, well, I'm performing a transformation in that high dimensional space. I'm turning it into another position. And what you find at that position is actually a full song. Like you can listen to this song occupies somewhere in this like space. And so that's kind of how Suno works. And so I just give you all that preamble to kind of bring it down a notch and say, well, first of all, there's things you use and rely on. Spotify's discovery mechanisms have been a boon to many artists. And it's very familiar with artists. Artists kind of feel more familiar with it than they do something like a ChatGPT or a Suno. But you should understand that what powers them both is just a high dimensional representation of the space of things in this set, the space of songs, the space of album covers, the space of words. and concepts and phrases, you know? So that's a good primer. That's like setting the table. That's like what we're talking about. The technology we're talking about is just allowing you to do things there. And so that's going to be a good understanding for like, okay, well, how could I possibly use AI in my workflow? Or what does it mean? You know, like I think there's a number of things, you know, directions we could go in this podcast, but at least we can like be well informed about what we're talking about.
Well, it's helpful to understand, like, in some ways, like have a one-to-one look at, here's a system, a tool that you are familiar with. This is how Spotify is recommending music to you and your listeners, and how it's categorizing music and the different features of what gets uploaded in Spotify and how the machine learning works to recommend. Now here is how an AI tool takes its input and categorizes it, and then allows you to manipulate it for an output that's not being fed to you in the same. It's not something that's being recommended to you. It's something that you can manipulate and control.
No, so it's literally, in many ways, it's kind of the same thing. It's for the recommendation, because think about this. As a Spotify user, if you listen to Spotify, you listen to music through Spotify, you exist in this space too. Your listening profile exists in this high dimensional space. You are an object in this space. You have a location. Okay. It's just like intense mathematics, but it's really cool how it works because it gets you to start thinking about things as the space of X, the space of solutions to this problem. And you think about these things as search spaces. How can I narrow the search space? So when I think about things like a problem I'm looking for a solution to, well, first I need to diagnose the problem. And there is a space of possible, explanations for the problem I'm experiencing. What can I rule out? And this is like how like things like, Sherlock Holmes style logic kind of work is anyways, moving on, like you exist in this high dimensional space too. Your listening habits do. In this case, they are taking your listening habits. They're saying you exist here. Okay. Here's all the songs you've listened to. They exist around you. They orbit, and here's a bunch of songs that are very close to you in this space, but you haven't listened to them yet. And you'll probably really like them because the math shows that you're here. And so now you can think about, okay, well, I exist in here. How do they also then feed in all of the playlist data, all of the trend and genre and review data? They do that by also putting words in this space. So words that describe artists also go in this space. And so now this space is multimodal. It's sound information. It's also text information. And that's how Suno, you can put in a prompt and some lyrics and it can locate what you're looking for. It can feed possible next, milliseconds of audio data based on where you started and what you were asking for. So it's basically calculating a position in this space and feeding you the next millisecond of audio data that should go there, right? That's kind of how it's operating. You can think of it. Now, Suno's opaque. Suno doesn't tell us how their model works, but you can generally think of it as like, it has to at least be some version of what I'm saying here. And so what that allows you to do is now you can iterate on sound ideas to a fully formed representation of what it's going to sound like that. You can immediately hear a rough version of what you were thinking from the moment you have a solid, even snippet of an idea.
So where does this put us, Cirque? We started talking today about having an AI discussion about our kind of evolving thoughts about AI in the music industry. Where does this place us right now?
I think that we're headed to a place where, and I said this before in the previous video that we referenced, your experiences with respect to media are going to be generated for you as you consume them. Sorry, what is it? What's OpenAI? Sora 2?
Sora 2, yep.
It's like TikTok, but like the video gets generated as you're scrolling. Okay. Yeah. Like the same thing will be true for music. You're going to see, and OpenAI is about to come out with, like where we are in history right now is OpenAI is about to come out with their own Suno. And I think we're very rapidly headed towards this place where most music is generated, most music that people listen to. And so I don't want people to like panic. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it might actually be really good. And at first I kind of didn't. I kind of didn't think it would be like net positive for people. Like I thought people's worst fears about this that are so obvious, like what they're going to be, were going to be to some degree validated. It's like, well, yes, you're not going to, do things in the way you used to, but I think they're actually going to be completely invalidated.
How so?
I think that what is this principle by which here we'll ask Jippity real quick. What is the principle by which
this is a meta episode
abundance of something leads to greater use? I think that people will end up listening to more music and actually treasuring curator and tastemaker sensibilities more than they did before. And because people are about to come into contact with the production line, the pipeline, the assembly line of music in a very real way. The average person will be able to go into their ChatGPT app and they'll be able to generate music, and they will come face to face with what that is like. And they will listen to music in a different way, because when you start making music, you don't start listening to music less than the average person. You listen to music more than the average person, and you think about music more than the average person. And I think what we're about to see is this blending of the audience with the creator class, not in a way that brings all creators down to the level of the audience, but in a way that actually raises the profile of tasteful creators in the first place.
Interesting.
I think that's what's about to happen.
I think that's a very fair argument, actually. I did not know. Yeah. I did not expect you to go in that direction with it. And I think that's a really good point. In some ways, technology is enabling the era of the tastemaker again.
Yeah, it's called Javon's paradox, aka the rebound effect. Making a resource effectively more abundant by improving efficiency lowers its cost of use, so people use more of it. And I think that there are clear, because that would show you why people would be more using music more if it was more abundant, right?
Yeah.
If there was greater diversity of music available, people will listen to a greater diversity of music. So maybe that happens, but also, okay, a good example is like video games, right? Who are the highest paid people outside of the owners of game design studios in video games? They're players. They're players who stream.
Yeah.
Are they the best players? No. I mean, the best players do stream, but like the most popular streamers aren't necessarily the best players. Right. They're pretty good. Yeah. They're not your average player. They would completely mog an average player. What happens in a case where you have everyone participating in the same game, the players of that game who are higher order, top 1%, top 5%, they become more cherished than they were previously. No one's playing the music game, but I think everyone's going to play the music game now, because people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to generate a song, and they're going to go to like Suno or like OpenAI's version, and for a period of time, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, much like how most users of Suno, I know you've spent a lot of time experimenting with Suno as of late, and you've kind of identified like, yeah, if you go on the homepage and start discovering what's being created on Suno, like it's not very good.
I go into the forums, I go into the Reddits and the subreddits or whatever, and like there's not a whole lot of obviously serious, earnest, modern, in active pursuit career musicians. There just aren't. Yeah. They're not there. They're not, and maybe they're using Suno, but they're not talking about it. And I think largely artists are, I've talked to so many songwriters and producer friends of mine over the last 2 weeks as I've been experimenting with it. And they're all sort of, it's like they didn't even occur to them that there might be some value in using it.
Which is interesting, because as we've been talking about that, we were talking with Dukes, and he was like, I've been using Suno in production for like a year now. Like just quietly doing it, not talking about it.
Well, okay, like think about this, right? It's interesting that like the dominant technology of the music industry with respect to the top 100, like can you name a piece of technology that was in every single top 100 song almost, besides like, a DAW or something obvious? Like, can you name like a plugin or something like that was in every single top 100 song?
Probably. I mean, I could probably make some pretty educated guesses. Probably like a Waves L2 or L3 limiter at one point or another,
It's arcade, but it's arcade.
Is it?
Output? Yeah. At least my mix engineer, pretty high up in like, top 100 like radio acts, like in terms of like who he ends up mixing for. And he was like, everyone is using this shit. It's like, this is how every song starts. It's like fucking around with shit in Arcade.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is all sounds you did not create, arranged in ways you did not specify. Right? Yeah. Like, and it's just like a little inspiration machine. And it's like, the same people who are behind that industry would line up to say that, and maybe some of them are using it already. Maybe some of them are using Suno already. But I think that publicly they would line up to say like, oh, I would never, I would never use AI.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think the difference is trivial. The difference is like, pedantic at best.
Yeah. It's interesting, the comparison you made to video games. I think in some ways, like, we can look back at like the history of recorded music as well and find comparisons there too. Think about how democratization of music recording changed when digital recording systems, software proliferated around the world. All of a sudden you went it costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a record in basically like, a NASA looking studio to
people with lab coats literally in the 40s to record a record. People wore lab coats.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that largely that's one angle that like really kind of blows the whole thing open. It's like, look, this is happening. Like, this is happening now. Suno V5 and probably whatever OpenAI releases is high fidelity enough to fool anyone. And like most people, a great majority of people would not know the difference. And to some degree will be better. And it's not just about like, people will say like every single objection you could raise. Oh, it sounds inhuman. It's like, well, I can make it sound very human actually. It's just that people aren't really doing that. But this is literally a space of every sound. It's a space of every song. And in that space is everything you can think of. It's anything you can think of. And if you get it to access that space appropriately, if you apply the right transforms, if you coax it in the right way, you get whatever you want. And I've done it. And so I think all those objections are like easy to slam dunk. But I think the biggest one is like, this is already happening. And what we say, 13-year-old, like a 13-year-old. You're not going to tell a 13-year-old, no, dude, this history of music, these are who your heroes are supposed to be. Look at the way they did it. And you need to spend thousands of dollars and go into a recording studio and do this the right way. Or even just, you need to buy this gear for your home recording and you need to hire a mixing engineer to get a great mix. And they're like, no, it's done. They're like, I put the prompt in, I did a mumble into my phone and it's done. This is the song. What do you mean? They're not going to care about what we care about. They're not going to care about the history of music. You're not going to tell them they're going to spend, thousands of dollars to like do this in a certain way. And so you really like, you can't contend with that. That generation is coming and they're not going to uphold whatever loyalty you have to the way things were done.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. Something I want to kind of explore here that you and I haven't talked about is what our thoughts collectively, as we kind of talk through them here, are on how AI may or may not shift like the power dynamics between like the 1% of artists in the industry and the 99%. Because I think that's a legitimate concern that a lot of artists probably have, is like, this is just it's going to be something that AI will be something that will be continually weaponized for the top against everyone else, against indies. And I don't really know. This is probably like maybe the first or second time. I've definitely had this thought pop up in my head before, but it's the first time that I'm verbalizing it, and definitely the first time that I'm mentioning it to you. But I'm curious if you've thought about that at all.
I think it's completely democratizing. And I think the biggest sufferers, interestingly, I think it's going to be record labels. And the reason is that it is still prohibitively expensive to make radio ready music. It is still prohibitively expensive to make top 100 music because of the mixing, because of the fidelity of the vocal chain, regardless of whatever.
Yep.
And oftentimes, like personnel too, like personnel is still a thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Look at the personnel list of a top 100 record.
But Suno is all of those personnel. Suno is all of those personnel, and AI mastering is probably going to also really improve over the next like 3 years, especially if you get like OpenAI. Now you have a crazy buildup of the supply chain of AI music, and people want it to sound a little bit better. People are going to make tools. It's going to be a thing.
Dude, I think AI mastering, it will rapidly level up.
I think Suno pumps out more than enough quality for the life cycle of a song.
I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, people have been using tools like Lander for mastering
100%.
for many years now. And many people
yeah.
have been doing it under the auspices of it being expensive, professional.
I'm talking about really high fidelity. I'm talking about like as if you got, because the thing is that the decisions, the decision pattern of any mix engineer or mastering engineer is encoded in the final product.
Right.
And this is all just training data for AI at this point. Like it's already heard it. To be honest with you, I would be very surprised if Suno V5 wasn't just unrestrictedly trained on all music that's ever been.
Oh yeah, I mean that's definitely the claim for sure.
I would not be surprised. And so we're at that point. And the thing about technology is you could think, well, they're going to sue Suno and they're going to shut it down, and they're not going to, because technology in San Francisco, what they do is they have a company, a scrappy startup company, does something broadly illegal, but it gives them a competitive edge. It's a regulatory arbitrage. And then they grow so fast and get so much investment that they can just pay whatever legal fee to fight it and pay whatever fine they might get. And then they become a hyperscaler, or they get folded into a hyperscaler. Like that's how it works.
Right.
So, like, I would be very surprised if the music industry didn't end up owning a piece of Suno, or I wouldn't fade the possibility that Suno just ends up owning a piece of the music industry.
Dude, I want to be very clear. Like, when people are waving the flag of the labels being like, they're going to sue Suno and they're fighting for us, it's like, they don't want to sue it and make it go away. They want to own it. They want to own it. Let's be very clear about that.
Very clear.
Nobody's saying that, dude. Nobody's saying that, but that's the truth. They want to own it. This is how corporatism works.
It is, yeah. They're not. It's literally just like dogs sniffing each other's butt when they sue each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is to say, like, that's all happening, and it's not. I know, like, look at me, man. Do I seem like I haven't thought through this? I think about this all the time. This is all I think about in a lot of ways, and I'm not depressed. And you know what I mean? And so I just want to caution you, like, I know this sounds maybe dystopian, but I don't think it is that dystopian. I think it's just a major changing of the guard. And I think it's in what you said, that this is a democratizing effect, because it is prohibitively expensive to make music of the quality that is required to be part of the club sonically. And people know the difference. They can hear it. And so to be part of the top 100 club, you need the producers, the mixers, you need the personnel, and you need the money that it costs to hire them and to do everything. And now you don't. Now that's 13-year-old who doesn't give a shit about like Muscle Shoals and doesn't want to learn about it. He doesn't care about, he doesn't care about like any of the big studios. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of the mixing engineers. He doesn't care about friggin' Tom Dowd or whatever. He doesn't give a shit. And he can make music, and it sounds to him like the top 100. And all he has to show up and be is wildly experimental, a great songwriter, and able to learn the tool that's like Suno or whatever OpenAI comes out with, or whatever comes out. That's all he needs. And he's going to do it. And so he doesn't need the record label. And so the record label no longer has this stranglehold over top 100 sounding music, because as a solo songwriter, which is often ends up being some 15-year-old kid of your top 100 music anyways, he doesn't get paid nearly enough. Well, he has a direct route to getting paid, and he doesn't care his voice is not on it.
There's so many, you said this at the top of the episode, there's so many artists that are afraid of this. Like this is not going to, a lot of this, despite all of the talk of democratization and walking into an age of abundance, this is naturally going to be scary for people. Like it has been, and it will continue to be.
Right.
I think there are some guidelines to give as far as like what you can do and what you can be thinking about. And honestly, from my perspective, what I've been saying about AI for years now in the way that you use tools is like, now is the time to be experimenting. And this includes with tools, music AI tools. It includes.
Okay. If you are good at writing songs and you have a good ear, because like, okay, you're a multi-instrumentalist, you do all the instrumentals yourself. Maybe like for you, it's a bad day, or maybe it's a great day because you don't have to. Because it's like, am I that psyched that you like picked out the guitar? Like, do I care or do I care that it's a good song? Do you know what I mean? So to you, it's like, do you want to pick up the guitar today? Do you not? Do you want to have AI generate some options for you, and then you might learn one of the pieces of whatever. Okay,
Right.
but like at the end of the day, I think for most people, it's a speed up. It's a massive speed up because like I want to write the song, and to the degree that you are talented in some direction that way, this is good for you. One, because it's good for you if the amount of bad songs out there 100x's. It makes you stand out so much more. So it's good for you if everything below you in quality in terms of like, is it well written? Is it well produced? Does it have a good direction? Is the taste there? Everything below you, if that 100x's, that's good for you.
Dude, oh my gosh, this brings me back. I remember in probably like 2010 or maybe 2011, I was sitting in a college classroom in a music business course, and I was talking with a friend and our professor about the idea of like the long tail of music and how more and more music was being uploaded at the time than ever before. And I remember talking to my friend, and they were like, yeah, but that sucks because that means that people need to sift through the junk to find the good stuff. And I was like, no, you're missing the point. That means
mechanisms arise to sift through the junk.
Yeah. And that means that the good stuff rises above. And it's crazy that we're having this conversation right now because I just feel like I had a deja vu moment based on what you
said. Additionally, on top of that, I think that Javon's paradox, Sez's law, supply creates its own demand. Like these are different, like natural inbuilt laws that show you that if there's just more good music, people are going to listen to more good music. And actually they might end up spending more money on it. And the reason being is that they're going to be creating music now. So they're going to be participating in this and they're going to know how hard it is. Now there will come a time when AI is just better than all of us at making bangers. And like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I don't know, but it's going to happen. Like that's just going to happen. There's going to be a day where I'm like, yo, I could never write something this good. This is amazing. So like, that's, we'll leave that out of the discussion for now. I think in the meantime, like
that's for a future conversation.
Dance in the fires of Armageddon for a second. Like it's really fun as a songwriter. I would love to get like this or that personnel on a track, but like, I'm not going to. As evidenced by the fact that I don't do it. I'm not supplanting jobs. It's something I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. I can, as a father, as someone running a business, I can go and I can express my talent of songwriting, some production decisions, some arranging, and learning the tool. And it doesn't take an arm and a leg, and it doesn't take all my time. And I get songs that I like, and I can put them out if I want to. And I think that happening is going to actually increase the economy for music and knock down a few of the incumbents, I think.
Yeah, a bit of a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, well, for one, this gives you guys a little bit of an insight into the internal discussions that we have about this kind of stuff. Circa and I and the rest of our team too, because we're talking about this stuff kind of all the time.
Yeah, to be clear, I think I'm the only one on the team who is as enthused as I am about this.
Yes, for sure.
And we run the gamut. There are people who are very much the opposite of me on this idea. So we contain multitudes. We are not a monolith.
Well, it's really interesting, man, because like over the last year, it was kind of a goal of mine at the agency to kind of empower the whole team to find new ways to use AI day to day in their work. And we've been talking about it more and more. Like we make it a regular point to talk about like, hey, what are you using ChatGPT for? What are you using Claude for? Give me a specific of something you did with AI this week. And being more intentional that way has kind of allowed that playground. I hope, at least for me, it has, and I hope for the rest of the team too, has allowed that creative playground with AI tools to open up for us. And I think that's like an important and really helpful sort of process to take yourself through if you're wondering, like, okay, what do I do? What do I do with any of this philosophical and sort of like future thinking conversation that the guys are having here today? Like, I'm constantly asking myself, at least on a weekly basis, like, how am I using AI right now? What else could I be using it for? And challenging myself to do more in that way. And I think you can do the same. We've done the same. And it, like Cirque just said, like, it's created differences in approach and opinion amongst our team, which has been really cool. And those differences in approach and opinion kind of also allow for creative tugs of war, which I think is great.
I'm literally using AI like almost every waking moment of the day. Dude.
Yeah, I don't think that definitely a working day does not go by where I'm not using AI.
Well, the way I think about it is like, man, like, well, first of all, like, you don't have a whole lot of opportunity. Peers are the only place you're going to get a lot of the benefits you get out of talking to an LLM as if it were another person. And peers often don't have the energy. They get fatigued by your concerns and thoughts.
I don't want to be in meetings all day long. Do you?
Yeah, and they're not on the same wavelength as you, and they're not multimodal. You can't just switch them to text and voice and send them pictures and get them to respond to everything. And it's just different. It's sort of like an offloading of your own brain, except this version is incapable of making design decisions. And it has access to pretty much any online faculty you could want to have, including sourcing any information. Yeah. So it's like, I consider it as an extension of my own cognition more and more, just because I think that's where it's going. And, you know, to some degree, the internet always has been for us, and smartphones always have been for internet native kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think the more you can, and this is, I'm going to bring it back home to the point we're talking about, which is the more you can start to think of intelligence like based, like neural network tools as extensions of your own capabilities. They amplify what you are already kind of, you know, you come with batteries included on, the more aligned you're going to be. Definitely. Because it's like, man, like I immediately saw things like, I think I've been able to jump on things a lot quicker and start using them in a way that's helpful for me a lot easier, just by thinking of it as like, I can offload this part of it, or I can do this part better.
Right. Yeah.
And finding places to insert it.
It's true. I love that you said that. And actually, like, I think back to when I was really learning music production, for example. Like, dude, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but like when I was like really obsessing over learning music production, like midway through high school and into college when I was actually studying it, like I would go to school, I would come home, and I would spend time recording and in recording forums, just searching, constantly searching the internet, pretty much like obsessively. And then in college, I would go to class, I would be in the studio, I'd go back to my dorm, and I would have headphones on, and I would be in Cubase or Pro Tools or whatever I was using at the time, and I would be on forums, and I would be learning, and I'd be looking at screenshots and watching videos, and basically just obsessively like scouring the internet to feed my.
Think about like, just not, I know this isn't the point of you saying this, but like, just think about the cost imposed on your whole life to have acquired that skill.
Yes, 100%.
Irrespective of your intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Like your intelligence is probably outpaces the bandwidth of like the learning methods of the time.
Definitely. And where I'm going with this is like, when I think about AI tools, let's just take ChatGPT. When I think about ChatGPT, and dude, if I had ChatGPT in college when I was doing that stuff, I would have been even more of a monster. I remember like friends would be like, dude, do you want to come to dinner at the cafeteria? And I'd be like, no, man, like I'm reading something right now. Like, imagine that.
It's like such how people progressed on a skill tree without this technology is going to seem like unimaginable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of love it.
Well, I think it's like also like that doesn't run out, because eventually like to some degree, you are already like you're a cyborg, and you might have a pin, you might have a smartphone in your pocket, you might have a neural link in your brain, dude, like whatever it is, you already are the technological extension of yourself as well. Like, and I think that to some degree, like right now, these machines are not. Here's the thing. You have a character, right? You have an ethic. You have a philosophy. You have a way you have calculated over a very long time span what the right way to be in the world is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the decisions you make are downstream of that. You calculate them on the fly by referencing your ethic and your philosophy. You say, well, I'm stoic and I prefer to act slow and think long. And so I'm not going to react to this stimulus or whatever, right? But it's downstream of like how you think you should be the best policy.
Right.
So you actually, what you do as a human is you calculate like really stable policy, and then you run almost everything off of it. And an AI doesn't do that. And that's why it's really bad at making design decisions, because its design philosophy is downstream of just like best practices, like averages. And yours is hyper specific. So the things you would decide to do are way different than the average of everything that's ever done, right? And so you have a reason for thinking the right way to do things. And so that's what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And don't lose that. If you surrender that to like some AI, like then yeah, that is dumb, but no one's saying to do that. Like bring your philosophy and your choices and your tastes and your ethic to the tools and say, I'm going to extend my raw capability with these, but I'm not going to abandon like all executive autonomy. Like,
isn't that what you want? Isn't that what everyone wants when they create? Like, that's
just because I want robot legs doesn't mean I want like a computer brain.
Yeah, dude. That's actually, I love that. And I love that we're kind of closing with this, because like, isn't that what you want? Isn't the highest form of creativity like the limitless expression of your perspective? And now you can, with the tools that are being developed and that are developing and being given to us, like you are more capable, you will be more capable than ever to express creativity that way. You will no longer be bound. That's fucking insane.
Like, think about it like this. When I'm in Suno, I'm using the tools exposed by the model providers to essentially force the model to explore a certain hyper specific part of song space. And that's kind of unbounded.
Yeah.
I mean, there's safeguards in place, but they could be broken. Like, and really it's a gateway into the entire space of songs. And what can you do with that? Like, where can you push it? That's the same as where can I push this plugin? Where can I push this synth? Where can I push this electric guitar? Where can I push this drum kit? Like, these are all similar concepts. We're exploring the space of possible sounds that are palatable to humans, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's do it, or unpalatable even.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys dug this. I'm sure that there will be future conversations similar to this one upcoming on the show.
I think it's going to be a thing, dude. I'm sounding the alarm. Like, I think it's only going to accelerate pretty rapidly from here. I have to imagine. I think people largely don't know that V5, like what it represents, or haven't seen it in action, or know, like,
Yeah, for sure. I think so too.
We'll see.
This was fun. We'll see you guys next time on Creative Juice. Peace out, Indies.
Can y'all really feel the East Coast?